Today on the show, I want to share with you what I believe are the top 5 myths about asthma and the truth that you need to know about that is going to set you free. As you may know, I've had asthma since birth, and throughout my life, I've been told different things from different healthcare professionals and just from teachers and from people in general that if I took and truly believed, I would have never played soccer as a kid, which was my favorite sport, and I would have never became an elite ultra runner that I am today. And that's why today I'm going to share with you what these different myths are. I picked 5 of them, and what I've done in my life that has helped me either debunk the myth or have a different spin on the myth that has allowed me to elevate myself to being a very strong athlete with very strong lungs. And to this day, I deal with asthma, especially when I'm sick. Let's kick it off with myth number 1. Asthma is not a serious disease. Okay, this is the first myth. Asthma is not serious. I don't care what people tell you. You may even have on the spectrum of asthma a small case of asthma. Okay. No matter how affected you are by asthma, it is a serious disease. This is wrong. Asthma is serious. Okay. So let's get rid of this. Okay. Asthma equals serious. It is a serious illness. Now, it's serious because it can kill you. And that's why you always want to make sure that you talked with your healthcare professional, okay? And you want to make sure that you have the proper medication or the proper techniques to help with your asthma, okay? As you may know, I never use my inhaler, but I always have it with me. And that's because if my natural ways of dealing with my asthma fail, I want to make sure that I have my rescue inhaler with me to save my life, and it can save your life too. That's why I have a disclaimer in the YouTube description and in the show notes if you're listening to this as a podcast, okay? You always want to make sure you talk to a healthcare professional, and you always want to take asthma seriously. Anyone who tells you that asthma is not a serious illness is kidding themselves. And you may even tell yourself that to make yourself feel better about asthma. Just because you have asthma and it is a serious illness doesn't mean that it has to affect you and your life. As a kid, I not only made sure to have my inhaler with me at all times, whenever I was sick, I almost always used something called a nebulizer. And specifically, there is different medication that my healthcare provider did give me. And eventually, as I worked on, using the medication less, we switched from using that medication to just using a saline solution in the nebulizer to open up my lungs, okay? And as an adult, I don't use a nebulizer anymore. I still have one just in case. And what I do when I'm sick is I'll actually try and get humidity into my system, like with a humidifier. When I'm taking a shower, I'll make sure that the steam I'm using it to open up my lungs, okay? So just make sure that you admit to yourself and make sure that other people know that asthma is a serious illness and needs to be taken seriously. Even if you have a minor case of asthma, you need to take it seriously. Myth number 2. Asthma medications are the only way to manage your asthma, okay? So medication is the only way to manage your asthma. I'm going to do a little arrow and put asthma. This is also very wrong, okay? Now, asthma is serious, remember. So myth 1, asthma is not a serious illness. Myth 2, medication is the only way to manage your asthma, okay? Well, this is wrong. Medication is not the only way. Now, while you always need to make sure you have your inhaler with you, and you need to have these tools like a nebulizer and any other medications that your healthcare provider has given you, you want to make sure you have them with you, okay? You don't necessarily need to use them. What I've done throughout my life is I have used exercise to help strengthen my lungs and manage my asthma. As a kid, I loved playing soccer. And when I was 4 years old, I was told by a healthcare professional that I should not play soccer, or that if I was going to play soccer, that I would need to use my medication all the time. I would need to take my inhaler before, during, and after my soccer games. Okay. And same with soccer practice. Well, an integrated medicine doctor told me that if I wanted to actually have my lungs strengthen themselves and become less dependent on my medications throughout my life, that I should always have my medication with me, so my inhaler with me, but only use it when I actually felt the symptoms coming on. So instead of using it before a game, I would only use it once I started feeling the symptoms. And I eventually was able to strengthen my lungs using exercise, using cardiovascular movement, to a point where I didn't even need my inhaler anymore. That's how I have managed my asthma without using medication, is first of all, via exercise. Second of all, decreasing inflammation in my body. Okay, this can be done in multiple ways. The two easiest ways is to decrease eating foods that create inflammation in your body. Now, this can be different for each of us. Now, there are some overarching foods that are going to create inflammation in all of our bodies. I mean, here's the thing, alcohol is going to create inflammation in your body. Okay, now fried food is going to create inflammation in your body. Now, I have a lot of different allergies, so there's different foods that cause inflammation in my body that don't cause inflammation in your body necessarily, okay? You may have the same allergies like dairy. I'm allergic to different types of nuts. So if I eat these things, it increases inflammation in my body, and I'm more likely to have an asthma attack, okay? So I want to decrease ingesting those things, okay? And I want to increase ingesting anti-inflammatory foods. I talk about all of this in my podcast episode called How to Cure Exercise-Induced Asthma Naturally. I have it linked in the description below if you're watching this on YouTube, and you can find it on your favorite podcasting platform by just searching How to Cure Exercise-Induced Asthma Naturally, and then look for Athlete with Asthma, and you'll find that episode, okay? And I talk about exactly how to do this. Basically, decrease inflammatory foods and substances and increase anti-inflammatory foods. That could be different vegetables, okay? That could be fruits. Now, like I said, you may have sensitivities and allergies where something that may be anti-inflammatory to me may be inflammatory to you. Be careful with that. Last summer, I was running and I had some asparagus before the run, and I had a full-on allergic reaction. It's crazy. Asparagus is usually an anti-inflammatory food, but it messed me up real bad, okay? I had to take Benadryl. I had an asthma attack hit me, and I had to take my inhaler, and thank God I had that with me. So you always want to be careful. And you can develop these at any time in life. My dad, when he was 60 years old, he developed a nut allergy for the first time. Nuts didn't bother him his entire life. Now he's 68, living with a nut allergy. So you gotta be careful with that. The third thing is you can avoid different environments best you can. I know that you may not be able to move, okay? And I know that you may go to school or something and there may be dust in the air. But when I was in school, I don't know if they do this anymore, but there was chalk. We'd use chalk on the board. And I would not ever be one of the people that would have to clean those, the erasers, because the chalk would inflame my asthma. Okay, so you can avoid these things. Avoid dust, smoke, cold weather. Now, I do have episodes that I talk about how to work out in the cold. Okay, and I have videos on my YouTube channel talking about running in the cold, how to run in the cold, all these different things. Now, in these pieces of content, in my podcast episodes, my YouTube videos, I do talk about, if you are going to do this, how to do it so that you protect your lungs and you can reduce your asthma symptoms. But if you want to manage your asthma altogether, you can avoid cold weather or breathe through a neck warmer, breathe through something when you're in cold weather. But there are different things you can do to manage your asthma that do not involve medication. Just make sure you always have your medication with you. It's a fail-safe. It is a rescue medication so that you if you have a severe attack, you're able to save your life or have someone save your life for you, okay? Myth number 3, asthma attacks can only occur during activity. Okay. Asthma, we'll go with exercise or activity is the only thing that causes asthma. This is just wrong. No. Exercise and activity can induce an asthma attack. Because even if you have exercise-induced asthma, that doesn't mean that you're not going to have asthma hit you because you walk into a room that's extremely dusty, that you live in a place where a fire breaks out. I live in Colorado, and we do get smoke. Maybe if you live in California, there's lots of smoke there when these fires break out. That can induce your asthma, okay? Cold weather can induce your asthma. Environmental toxins can induce your asthma. An allergic reaction can induce an asthma attack. So no, exercise is not the only thing that can induce asthma. You need to make sure that you're ready for an asthma attack to occur at any time. So that means always have your inhaler with you, right? I have a disclaimer in the show notes and in the description below this YouTube video, okay? Always talk to your healthcare professional and always err on the side of caution. Asthma can hit you at any time. This is a myth. Exercise and activity can cause asthma, so can a lot of other things. Okay. Number 4, talking about exercise. Asthmatics should avoid exercise. This is myth number 4. Avoid exercise. This is probably my favorite myth. This is so wrong. Now, can exercise induce an asthma attack? Yes. Are you more likely to have an asthma attack when you're exercising than when you're sitting down? Probably. Should you avoid exercise if you have asthma? No. Now, you need to be careful with exercise. You need to talk to your healthcare professional about this, okay? For me, throughout my entire life, I have worked on building the strength of my lungs through exercise and through something called progressive overload, okay? So what you really want to do is use progressive overload. Progressive overload means that, yeah, if you haven't ran in 5 years or if you've never ran before and you go out there and you run 5 miles, is there a chance you're going to have an asthma attack? Yeah, it's probably very likely. You're probably going to have it way before the 5-mile mark. Okay. Progressive overload means that you are going to progressively increase your exercise. So start by a walk, right? If we're talking about running, I talk about running all the time on the show and on my YouTube channel. I'm an ultra runner with asthma, and I didn't just one day become that. It took me years, took me thousands of miles. Took me thousands of miles, ran and walked a little bit at a time over decades. Okay, now over the past 5 years when I really took it seriously, but 5 years ago, I was only running 4 to 6 miles as my long run. Now I can run 60 plus miles in a day in 12 hours. Progressive overload got me there. Okay, so that means if you're running and you decided to do a 5K for the first time in your life, I highly recommend that you start by walking. Okay, you start by walking a quarter mile. Then you can walk half mile, then a 3/4 mile, then a full mile. Then you can start adding a jog in, right? You can walk for a quarter mile, jog for a quarter mile, walk for a quarter mile, jog for a quarter mile, to build up your lungs, build up your strength, build up your cardiovascular, build up your exercise, okay? And you can do that with anything. With soccer, same thing, okay? Soccer, what I did is I progressively overloaded my lungs. I started by not using my inhaler before a game or before a practice, and I would go without my inhaler for like 5 minutes, then 6 minutes, 7 minutes, 8 minutes, 9 minutes, 10 minutes. And eventually I didn't need my inhaler at all, but I always had it with me. You can progressive overload that way. You can do that with literally any type of exercise. This is the way, progressive overload. Avoiding exercise is not the way. Start slow, progressively increase it. Now, if I don't exercise for a week and then I exercise again, I'm going to feel symptoms. Am I going to need to use my inhaler? It depends, but most likely not. If I don't exercise for a month and I exercise, yes, I'm going to feel it. That's why progressive overload and consistency. You want to do this over time. That's why you want to get walks in all the time. Okay, you want to avoid walking in smoke, cold weather, and in very dusty places, though. Okay. Progressive overload. You don't need to avoid exercise, just be mindful when you're exercising and focus on progressive overload, adding a little bit each time. Number 5, asthma is curable. Okay. This is very controversial, and I've actually done a whole podcast episode on how to cure exercise-induced asthma naturally. Well, asthma is technically not curable. The symptoms are manageable, okay? And in my podcast episode, How to Cure Exercise-Induced Asthma Naturally, I talk about how, over my lifetime, I have been able to manage my asthma symptoms without using medication, and I even won a 100K ultra race last year against people with asthma and without asthma. I'm just assuming other people that ran that race had asthma, okay? So is asthma curable? No. You got to be careful with this because curable makes it seem that all of a sudden you're not going to need an inhaler. You always want to have an inhaler, okay? Your symptoms are manageable, and you can technically cure symptoms naturally by focusing on exercise, decreasing inflammation in your diet, and avoiding environments that set off your asthma. But asthma itself isn't curable. You always have your inhaler. If you've been diagnosed with asthma, always make sure you have your rescue inhaler with you. Anything else your healthcare provider recommends you. For me, that means always having a nebulizer on hand, because when I'm sick, that's when I do feel my asthma come on. Okay. Now, I have a gift for you for spending time with me, called my 3 Pillars of Healthy Living Guide. What I've done is I've taken the 3 pillars of healthy living that I've kind of really integrated into my life, especially over the past few years. I was about 30 or 40 pounds overweight, and I lost 30 pounds in less than 90 days and have been able to keep it off ever since by integrating these 3 pillars of healthy living into my life. And these 3 pillars of healthy living have really helped me manage my asthma too. The first pillar is movement, right? Progressive overload, movement, progressively moving more. The second pillar is tracking. So tracking what I'm eating, right? Making sure I'm not putting a bunch of inflammatory foods into my system, making sure I'm eating a bunch of anti-inflammatory foods. Then the last one is accountability. That's the third pillar. Accountability is, making sure I have a partner that keeps me on track with these other things. Accountability with asthma could mean that the people around you know that you have asthma, and they help you keep accountable with always having your inhaler with you. They know where your inhaler is so that you are safe. If you have an attack and you're in a panic, someone else knows where your inhaler is, okay? So my 3 Pillars of Healthy Living Guide, you can integrate these 3 pillars into your life immediately. And this guide is going to take you less than 2 or 3 minutes to read. I have it linked in the show notes and a description below the YouTube video. Or you can go to www.athletewithasthma.com/healthy-living-guide to grab your free guide today. I'll see you in the next episode.